When I was 8 years old, I developed a fear of heights. I remember the day. Now, to be fair, it's not like I liked heights before, but I wasn't really afraid until the summer when I was 8 years old. I was at a summer camp that had one of those ropes courses, where you scale walls or go on those zip lines in the trees. I wasn't particularly interested in this, except there was this boy, and he had this smile and these eyes, and he rocked my 8-year-old world. He was the counselor for the ropes course, and he asked me if I wanted to scale a 10-foot wall, and I said yes, even though every single fiber of my being actually meant no. But still, I started to climb. And as I climbed that wall, I started to feel this tightness in my chest and then really couldn't move my limbs. Seeing my distress, he reached over, grabbed me, and threw me over the wall. When I landed on the net on the other side, I had a full case of fear of heights, and also the desire never to do that ever again. And that worked pretty well for me for about 8 years, until I was again at summer camp in Maine. I was at an amusement park, and there was this boy. He had these eyes and this smile, and he reeked of Dracar Noir because he was Italian and it was the 1990s. And he wanted me to go on the pirate ship of doom, the one, with him. He asked, and I said yes, even though deep down I was really thinking no, anything but that. But I agreed to because, he was cute. So we went, and he, of course, wanted to sit at the very top. So we sat there, and the bar came down, and it started to go and get a little higher and a little higher, and I felt that tightness in my chest. And then I started to feel a little tingly, and I began to say the prayer that religious Jews say before they die. And then I stopped saying anything because I was so terrified I was just catatonic. When what felt like 40 minutes later passed and the ride stopped, I got down and literally fell to my knees and kissed the ground, swearing that I would never, ever do that again. Which worked pretty well for about 8 years until there was this boy. And he had these eyes and this hair and this skin and this smile, and he was amazing. He was the one. And he asked me to go skiing. Now, I grew up in New England and had never once gone skiing because to ski, you need to get up the mountain, which requires a chairlift, and that was just a non-starter. But again, he was cute, and so he asked, and I said yes. And I really, really wanted to do it, but I didn't. Still, we got up onto the chairlift, and the bar came down, and I felt that familiar tightening in my chest. And we got up and we started going, and I started to feel a little dizzy, but I made it to the top, and I was feeling so good when I got up to the top of the mountain, and I was standing there. Whereupon I realized that mountains are also high, and that was scary too. But my options for getting down involved going back on the chairlift or somehow skiing down the mountain. Well, basically I skied down the mountain on my butt, and at that moment decided I was done with heights and I was done trying to impress boys. For about 8 years. When I was up in New Hampshire And there was this boy, and he had these eyes and this smile and this laugh, and he was everything because he was my son. He was 3 years old. It had kind of worked out with chairlift guy. We were up in New Hampshire. I was up with my son and my 6-month-old daughter and my parents. My husband couldn't be there. We were up in New Hampshire having a great time when my son had a seizure. And another. And another. And the little hospital that we had gone to in New Hampshire just really didn't know how to handle a child having such severe seizures. They were even having trouble getting the IV into his arm. They decided they needed to medevac us, which meant a helicopter flight. My mother, knowing how much I hate heights, suggested that I tell the EMTs of my fear and that maybe they could give me a Valium. But I knew that if I told them, they wouldn't let me on the flight. And I knew that come hell or high water, I was going to be on that helicopter. I was not going to leave my 3-year-old son alone. And so I summoned my strength and I got into the helicopter and I buckled the seatbelt. And the medevac flight technician asked, "Are you ready?" And I said yes. Even though as I looked out the window at my parents holding my 6-month-old daughter, I really didn't feel all that ready. But the helicopter began to go higher and higher, and I felt that tightening in my chest. And then I looked at my son, who was unconscious. And I started to laugh because I realized that he would love this flight and that I would love to be unconscious. And it was really at that moment that I learned 2 things about myself. 1, there are things that I am more afraid of than heights, and that I really would do anything for the love of a boy.